Welcome in, guys, for another episode of the Dynasty Gambit. I'm Ben McCowan, joined here by Austin Jacobson, and tonight we have a fun episode for you talking more trades. So this is Trading Pieces number 2. Let's get in it, guys. All right, so Austin, man, this is a lot of fun because we're heading into week 4. We asked the community to hand us out some trades that they've made over the last week. We've got quite a few to go over tonight, but it's been an exciting first quarter of football. Kind of weird, kind of off, a little bit different. But the first thing that I wanted to go over with you is kind of a hot topic right now because I think it's very much like just the hot piece in Dynasty. And this player, when I looked it up on Dynasty Daddy, is actually the number 1 traded for and away player in Dynasty right now. And that is actually this is a trade I made earlier this week, and I think it's gonna be an interesting thing to talk about. But that is Trey Benson or a 26 first. And before I kind of let you take the stage here, I just kind of want to lay out my thoughts on this, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Because we were talking about this pre-show, and I agree with some of a lot of the things you were saying, right? But I have a few caveats to why maybe Benson for a 26 first makes sense, right? And only for a contender. I think if you're a rebuilder or a retooling team, you should not touch this. Or if anything, if you have Benson, definitely sell for a 26 first or 27 first. But when I was looking at the consensus rookie draft for 2025, I went down the list. Ashton Genty, Marion Hampton, Tedero McMillan, going from Cam Ward all the way down. And then when you get to that 110, 111, 112 spot, which, the hope is that if you're close to a championship, you're ending up towards the end of the first round. You see names like Jackson Dart, Colston Loveland, and RJ Harvey. And the name RJ Harvey was an interesting one for me because I was actually just recently talking about this in the Empire of the Elite Discord. RJ Harvey is a early day 2 pick in draft capital behind an older veteran running back who is often injured. And we have a lot of hope for him to eventually surpass and take that starting role. Well, let me tell you about another running back who's doing just that, and that is Trey Benson. And to be honest, I would take the younger asset in Trey Benson, who is now getting a starting role, over a player like RJ Harvey at this time and right now going forward in Dynasty if this holds as it is. But I think there is a little bit of an argument against that. And I want you to tell our fans and listeners a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I liked Trey Benson. I liked him as a prospect coming out. I liked him when he was in college at Florida State. I think he's a good player. I think he's a decent running back. And the Cardinals liked him. I mean, he worked in quite a bit even when James Conner was healthy. He had how many touches? He had 9 touches in week 1, 7 touches in week 2, 13 touches in week 3. Now, obviously, part of week 3, James Conner was hurt because he got hurt in the middle of the game. But I mean, he was a pretty consistent part of the offense anyway. And so I think there's reason to be excited if you have Trey Benson on your roster that he can be a solid RB2 the rest of the season. The problem is I just don't want to overreact because I think that what you're looking at is Trey Benson is probably going to be a solid between RB 15 and 20 the rest of the season. I don't see a ton of ceiling. I see him being James Conner. I mean, this isn't a great offensive line. It isn't a great offense overall. They're okay. They're probably middle of the pack in the NFL. I just don't see a ton. Like, I could be wrong. He could be this year's Bucky Irving. But I think when you're paying a first for a running back, I think you need guaranteed points. And so for me, if I'm a rebuilder, I'm not giving away my first for this, obviously.
Mhm.
If I'm a contender, I'd rather use my first on Derrick Henry because he's more guaranteed points. And to me, there's nothing guaranteed for Trey Benson beyond the rest of the season. In fact, I would argue even the rest of the season isn't necessarily guaranteed. We've seen it time and time again when a running back gets hurt, the team goes out and signs somebody else, creates a committee. And so if anything, I think this is a window to sell Trey Benson. And I think even on a contender, you could pick up an extra 26 first, especially if you're confident in your team. You think you have the best team, then you're probably not, you're probably not getting the 112, right? Because, you're getting it from somebody that thinks they're probably better than they are. If you can kind of pick out that team, you can find it in leagues where the person that wants Trey Benson, you're like, they think this is their missing piece, but a 10 to 15 point running back probably isn't going to make the difference. To me, it's like, I think Trey Benson kind of goes for the rest of the season, right, in the same category as someone like Javonte Williams, where it's like, it's a starting running back, he has a job, he's probably Jordan Mason, I'd put in that same category. And so I think there's a lot of guys that are going to be solid plays the rest of the year. But there's no guarantee beyond that. So to me, if I'm going to give up my first 4 running back, I want a guy that is guaranteed production. We've seen produce. So I'd rather save my first for something else down the line, or I'd rather sell him for a first to bank that first for when I know what I need. Now, maybe you have James Conner and Joe Mixon and I don't know, 3 or 4 running backs that have gotten hurt. And you're like, man, I desperately need an RB2 time. Now's the time to make the move. I don't hate it. But even then, if you're a contender that needs a running back, I think there's more guaranteed smash hit pieces that you can add, a Derrick Henry type player, or can you do a first and a second for McCaffrey? Like, I think I'd rather do that if I'm on a contender than a first for Benson. So that's just my thought. It's the opportunity cost more than anything else. And I think there's a chance. Now, you never want to be on the wrong side, but I think there's a chance that this is the peak value for Trey Benson ever. So we'll see. I mean, maybe James Conner never is the same, but he's still under contract next year. And if he's, even if it's a 10 or 11 month recovery, you expect to see James Conner next year in some role for the Cardinals. So I'm just reluctant to buy it high. I think the time to buy Trey Benson was in the offseason or prior to the James Conner injury.
Yeah. No, and I don't disagree. I think if you brought up some of those names back again, like you said, Javonte Williams, Jordan Mason, even we were mentioning in the Discord, J.K. Dobbins, and you ended up getting a second on top of any of those guys as part of a contender, you're building insulation for the future, and you're also still getting a running back that can still produce. So,
and I think most of those guys you can get for a second. Honestly, Jordan Mason, J.K. Dobbins, you can probably get for a second and get probably as good, if not better, production than Trey Benson the rest of the season.
Yeah, it's tough with Jordan Mason because I've tried to throw out some seconds. People want to hold on to him because they see like what it could be in that Vikings offense for the rest of the season. I think, I'm not paying a first for Mason, but if you can either tier down from a guy like Benson and get a Mason plus, or like you said, if you get somebody who is willing to let go of him for a second, definitely do that. Let's talk about another trade that, that was submitted to us. Actually, this is from Heisenberg. This is Lamb or Egbuka in the 27 first. So CeeDee Lamb or the new hotness in Emeka Egbuka in a 27 first. I'm going to give my opinion on this. I don't think it's enough for CeeDee Lamb.
No. Yeah,
I need
people
more.
People will be excited to hear this. I'm trading away at first in this one. I'm very happy to. This is the kind of deal I want. Your ability to tier up. We talked about Egbuka. I love Egbuka, but even since the last episode, he's now moved up even more. They have him Keep Trade Cut has him at wide receiver 8, ahead of Nico Collins, ahead of Drake London, ahead of Brian Thomas. I just think the hype is getting too much. I mean, you basically have now built in his cost is at his ceiling. I just think that you have Mike Evans is out right now. Chris Godwin's coming back. Those guys aren't going away. Neither one of them like Godwin will probably take some time to work back in, and Evans is going to be out for a few weeks. But they're going to be part of the offense. McMillan's coming back. So it's just, if I'm a contender, I'm not too worried about Lamb. I can probably fill in with someone else for a little bit. So I
Mhm.
don't think you should be panic selling. They still, the Cowboys still haven't even, as far as at the time of this recording, I don't think they've officially ruled him out for Sunday. I don't think he's going to play. He's doubtful.
Yeah.
But I mean, the fact that we're in that boat where he's week to week, it's like he could play as soon as next week. And I would say I don't expect him to miss any more than 3 weeks. So if you're a true contender, you're 3-0 right now. You know, you can afford to wait a little bit. So do not panic sell Lamb. In fact, look for opportunities like this to buy, because to me, unless you're a rebuilder full on, which is interesting because usually trading for an injured player is a rebuilder move. But to me, Lamb's going to score. I would venture to say Lamb will score more points the rest of the season than Egbuka, even with missing these 3 games. That might be a bit of a bold take, but I think Lamb is set up really well to be the wide receiver 1 the rest of the season. In points per game, because he's going to miss some games. But so I would be willing to take on this risk as either way, really, as a contender or a rebuilder. But to me, I don't want to give up a 27 first if I think it might be early. So if
Yeah.
I'm in a 2-year rebuild, if I'm doing a 1-year reboot, I might think about this. But more than likely, this is a trade that I make on a contender to get Lamb. And maybe on a rebuilder you do this, but to me, I would try to wait. I would hold Lamb on a rebuilder. You're like, great, I'm not getting points from him for the next few weeks. Hold Lamb. When he comes back, you should be able to get the equivalent, maybe not like Egbuka himself, but a guy in that range plus 2 firsts. I just think that Lamb is going to smash the second half of the season.
Well, yeah. So going back, I think, to what you were saying about Lamb not being ruled out for this weekend, and they didn't give him the IR designation.
Right.
So the Cowboys expect that he's not going to miss anywhere more than 3 weeks.
Yeah.
If he would have been expected 4 weeks or more, they would have given the IR designation just to be able to get that extra roster spot. But they're not exactly sure what's going to happen in the next few weeks that he could possibly play. And when you're playing Lamb and have the opportunity to play Lamb, even when he's coming back from an injury, there's nobody better on your lineup that you're going to start over him. So the other piece of this, right? And I think you said it right? Like, if you're a rebuilder, you're likely not going to be giving up that early 27 first. And if you're a contender or a retooler, if you're a contender, the likelihood is you're buying for later in the season when he does come back in a few weeks. You've already got the insulation from other wide receivers that are on your team. Because I actually had the similar situation with Rashee Rice in a couple of situations where, I'm, 2-1 or 3-0, and I actually, on one team I'm losing Terry, but in a few weeks I'm getting Rashee Rice back. And so you build a little bit of insulation later in the season when you get that stud back. And so it's a good move looking toward the future, especially if you know your team is insulated enough to win over the next couple of weeks, that you get another stud back in your lineup. And then going back to your point on and getting Egbuka at his ceiling, this is a deal that I would tear down from Lamb to get JSN. And to me, Egbuka is not even where JSN is at this point. I think that is Egbuka's ceiling that I see right now. But if I want to go tear down and make this move, I would rather get a JSN, or possibly even if you can get Drake London while he's on a little bit of a lull right now and a little bit of a low point in his value. Yeah,
I mean, can you possibly get Drake London in a second, or even Drake London in the third for Egbuka? That's something I'd consider doing. I think that, especially on a contender, because I think although Egbuka I think has a lot of long-term upside, I do think that there's going to be a logjam for targets here in a few weeks. Now, I love him. I think he's going to be a smash play over these next few weeks, but it's just that is looming ahead of there. And it's crazy because I'm looking at Keep Trade Cut here. They have Lamb now at wide receiver 6, which I think is kind of silly. But so he's 2 spots ahead of Egbuka. So they almost have them,
extremely reactionary.
JSN 7 in there. So I like this for Lamb. I do kind of see maybe this is a team that, so let's put myself in the shoes of the Lamb manager. Let's say you're kind of a middle of the pack team. You feel like you're maybe good enough to make the playoffs, but you don't feel like you're a real contender. The team you're trading with is a team that has Egbuka, but then it has a bunch of kind of older guys, and you're like, man, they're going to be good this year, but next year, I think this could be an early first. I could see sort of a pivot of let's get Egbuka off that team. Let's stash him away on my team. And maybe it actually helps you in the next few weeks figure out, like maybe you give yourself the best lineup possible. It's like figure out, oh, yeah, I win 3 in a row. Maybe I go for this. Now I've got an extra first banked. But that's the kind of deal where you're like, if it's an early first, if you think it could be an early first and it's Egbuka, I kind of see it. But even then, I'd probably try to squeeze out a second on top or something like that, just to kind of, you just need a little bit more for me to give up Lamb. I just think he's one of the premier assets in Dynasty, and for a rookie and a first, there's a lot of risk there.
For sure. And I think we're both in agreement on that in any situation, right?
Yeah.
Now this one, actually, this is again Heisenberg, but this one actually involved yours truly. So I will be leaving myself out of, I mean, I might give myself some of the thought process, but as far as some of the actionable advice, I want you to kind of give some advice on this, Austin. So my thought process was my team is pretty much in a hard rebuild, right? Mayfield, 30 years old. I think he's definitely going to still stay as a QB1, high-end QB2, at least over the next 5 years, hopefully. But in my position with my team, it doesn't serve me well to hold on to an older quarterback when I have so many other needs on my team that I decided to try and tear down to burden in a 26 first. So I'll kind of lay the floor for you on that one.
Yeah. So can you give me a bit more context of who are your other quarterbacks? And what's is this a 4 or 6 point passing touchdown? Like, what are we working with that?
Yeah, so it is 4-point passing touchdown, I believe, which actually look at the team here. I believe it is 4-point passing touchdown. And I think I had actually, here it is right here. So I have Bo Nix as my QB1. And then I had Cam Ward as my QB3. So I had a younger rookie quarterback to come back in. And then I believe it is actually, let's see, going back to the scoring here, 6-point passing touchdown. So favors Baker Mayfield a little bit more there.
Yeah. So if it was 4, I would like this a bit more. I don't think it's, if you're in a hard rebuild, I don't think it's a bad way to get off of Mayfield. I think Nix and Ward are your quarterbacks of the future. And if Ward doesn't work out, you can have, you'll have extra picks. What is this first looking like? What is the guy you're trading with's team look like? Do you think it's going to be mid or late, or what are we looking at?
I think it's likely mid, probably middle of the pack. If it even is late, it's probably not going to be anywhere towards, the 10 to 12.
Yeah, I think the tough thing is with guys like Burden, where you've seen flashes, right? He was picked, usually, I would say he's usually picked around 2 or 3-ish, right? In rookie drafts, early second round. And we've seen a flat, like we saw him have a long touchdown against the Cowboys, but really he hasn't done much besides that. So we've seen potential, but we haven't seen a lot of production. It's hard to know what their value is because I don't think anybody's going to trade him away for a second. Right. But I don't think many people are going to pay a first for him. So he's kind of in this no man's land. But I think there is a path where you see Burden being worth a first, by the end of this year, if he keeps having some, even if it's just a few big games where he flashes potential. Maybe there's an offseason trade of DJ Moore or something like that. Right. So I think that there's a potential for him to be worth a first. And to me, I think in a 6-point passing touchdown, I want 2 firsts for Baker, but I'm just not sure if you're going to be able to get that deal done, right? A lot of it's about the league economy. And, some leagues are just like, I don't want to pay 2 firsts for Baker. And especially if there's not a team with a bunch of firsts, most teams each have their own 26 and 27. Not many people want to give up 2 years worth of draft capital for kind of a productive, but kind of a boring option. Baker Mayfield, he's not flashy. And so it might be hard to get 2 firsts, and this might be the best deal you can get. And I don't mind this. I just on a pure value standpoint in a 6-point passing touchdown, as if I'm a contender and I need a quarterback, this is the exact type of deal I want to do. Give up my first, give up a rookie that probably isn't making my lineup at all this year, to get a solid. I mean, a guy that's a back end QB1 probably. So I like the deal more from a value standpoint for the guy getting Mayfield. But I understand as a rebuilder, if you're like, okay, I want to get rid of one of these 3 quarterbacks. I want to get some points off my roster. I get rid of the oldest one for what could potentially be the value equivalent of 2 firsts. And so I'm fine with it.
Absolutely. And I think that's where I was stuck, right? It's like, I knew I wasn't going to get 2 firsts for Mayfield at that point. And I'm trying to like get some value onto this roster, getting some picks back to really keep this rebuild going. And so, yeah, at that point, I knew Heisenberg was getting a good deal and being able to get Mayfield on a contending team. We'll see if it ends up going to the chip. Good luck, buddy. But yeah, I think that was a good deal for both sides. I think you got a good cheap quarterback there, or a cheaper side of a QB1 there.
Yeah, especially in a 6-point passing touchdown, it's hard to get a good quarterback for less than 2 firsts. So if he's not a huge burden believer, then I think that it makes a lot of sense.
For sure. This deal comes to us from Cambodian Milk, and he's in our Discord in the Empire of the Elite as well. He told us that he gave away Travis Hunter and Spencer Rattler for a 27 first and a 26 third.
I think that Hunter's probably still worth a first, and Rattler is probably worth a third. Maybe you can squeeze a second out of someone. I wouldn't pay a second. So I think it's a pretty fair deal. I just like the liquidity of the picks. I don't know that Rattler is ever going to be a top 20 quarterback. Even if he continues to be a starter, he's just going to be your QB3, a bye week fill-in, somebody you're not excited about playing. So give me the third. And then Hunter versus the first. We haven't seen much from Hunter so far, but I still think there's a lot of potential. This is a guy that was going as high as 102, 103 in some drafts, depending on your format. So yeah, I mean, it's tough to give him up for 1 first, but it doesn't look super promising early on. But that whole Jacksonville offense has been out of sync, so it's kind of hard to know. I mean, Brian Thomas, obviously, if these are the first 3 games of his rookie season, you might have sold him for a first too, right? And then you would have regretted that later. So I think we want to be careful with that, but I do kind of like getting liquidity, getting the picks. I think is a fair deal. If the trade was just Hunter for a 27 first, I might be on the side of Hunter.
Yeah.
But taking on Rattler and giving up another first, you're giving up 2 picks for 2 players that are very hard. Like, I don't think either one of them you feel comfortable putting in your lineup this week. So it's when you give up 2 picks, including a premium pick, and even if it's projected late, we don't know. I mean, it's a year and a half from now, 2027 first. And that class is just so hyped up. Even if you don't think it's going to live up to the hype, everybody loves it, and the value is so high that you can get a lot for it. So that's just not how I want to use my 27 first right now, is for a speculative ad. I'd rather get a guy that's going to help me right now.
Yeah, for sure. And I was able to end up selling myself Rattler for a second in another league. And so I guess the way you could view it too, right? I would prefer the picks as well. But if you believed in Hunter and believed that he was worth more than a first, and then we're able to end up parting ways with Rattler after acquiring him for an additional third and getting a second for him, I think that's a pretty good deal. But also, again, like you said, he's not putting points on your roster right now. At this point, Travis Hunter is either a hold. You're probably not getting the value that you want to get out of him. And I think this deal is probably a good one to get almost close to that value. So I think Cambodian, go ahead.
Yeah, unfortunately, it seems like right now, Travis Hunter is close to that, is in that, like you said, the hold and see category, kind of in the same spot as I'd put like a Luther Burden or a Jaden Higgins. It just doesn't seem like he's playing enough and getting enough targets to be a starter in your lineup. Doesn't mean he won't be eventually. But it's just, it's tough to, he's not in the Tat and Egbuka category right now.
Yeah, no, for sure. And, I feel for people that spent, you were taking that risk when you spent the 102 on Travis Hunter, right? But, luckily I was able to, in certain situations, to get him for the 107 or get him for a late first. And so it didn't feel as hard on my team to realize Travis Hunter's likely sitting on my bench for other vets that are starting for me right now.
Well, let me ask you this. Would you rather have Travis Hunter or Devontae Smith?
I feel like it would be easier to sell Travis Hunter than Devonta Smith.
Yeah,
I've tried. Go ahead.
But that's probably the range, right? And Devontae Smith,
Yeah.
Jordan Addison.
I think it's right there because I think
range.
it's going to be difficult for you to get a 27 first for any of those three.
Yeah. So I mean, I think I'd take the picks.
Yeah, no, I agree. So next trade here we have from Amish Bro on our Discord. He ended up getting Keenan Allen for Jake Bobo and a 28 fourth. And he told us that he's a contending team. To me, I like this deal a lot. To me, Jake Bobo's a nothing. He's behind Torrey Horton on the depth chart as far as wide receiver for the Seattle Seahawks. And you're giving up a fourth 3 years from now.
This is the least amount you can give up in a trade for the guy who's the wide receiver 6 through 3 weeks. I don't think he's necessarily going to keep that up. I think Ladd will get his own. He'll get his touches here soon. But man, I think he's going to be a rock solid wide receiver 2 rest of season. And this is dirt cheap. This is the easiest one we've done so far. Keenan Allen by a lot. I would straight up on a contender. I wouldn't mind in the right situation. I wouldn't mind giving up a second for Keenan Allen, and I would easily give up a third. So if you give up a fourth and a guy you probably need to cut, then
that's a steal.
And not only a fourth, the furthest out and worst pick that Sleeper allows you to have. And the guy that should be on waivers for Keenan Allen, yes, give me Keenan Allen. Even if he retires, in 4 weeks. 4 weeks of Keenan Allen is worth more than
it's giving up nothing. Even if you got a couple of weeks of production to get you a couple wins, that's a win right there. So no, Amish, you won that one for sure.
Yes.
This next one is coming into us from MD, from Dalton. It is Jalen Warren or a 26 and 27 second. And he did tell us, again, this is on the contending team where he lost, I believe he said he lost James Conner and Austin Eckler both to injury.
It's too much for me.
Yeah.
I would take the picks. I think that you can do something. To me, you should be able to get 2 Jalen Warrens with 2 seconds.
I just feel like there's better players for that
range.
Right. And I think it ended up being okay for him to work out.
For 2 seconds.
What's that?
Yeah. Right. I think you could put Montgomery for 2 seconds, Kamara for 2 seconds.
Yeah, I think you could get Montgomery, Kamara. We just talked about Jordan Mason, who I think you could get for 2 seconds or a second and a third.
Yeah.
So I don't know that Jalen Warren's exactly the guy that I want to be buying into, but I mean, as of right now, he's holding the RB1 job for Pittsburgh, whatever that's worth.
Yeah, I think he looks like he's getting passing work. Looks like he's the guy. Caleb Johnson is in the doghouse. Kenneth Gainwell is okay, but he's a career backup, really. So I think I'd be maybe willing in the right situation to pay 1 second, or maybe a second and a fourth, maybe second and a third, but 2 seconds is too much for me. 2 years worth of seconds. Seconds are one of the easiest traded assets, and it's a way that you can get an asset that helps your team without giving up your major bar chip. When you're making these small 2 years worth of that flexibility for a guy that is not even guaranteed to be a starter the rest of the year, I don't love it, honestly. Sorry.
Yeah. No. Dalton, you win a lot of other trades, but this might be the one we just don't agree with.
Oh, he wins his fair share of trades.
Exactly. He'll be fine. So the next one is coming to us from one of our Discord members. I don't want to butcher it, but I believe it's Kate M.I. or Kate Katami. It's 26 third for Wentz and a 26 fourth. So he ended up getting a 26 third for Wentz and the fourth. I think this is okay, right? I think Wentz is in a position right now where he's starting over the next couple of weeks, at least until JJ McCarthy comes back. And you were able to give up, the fourth to get the third. I think this is kind of a value in.
Yeah. So this is one of those things where it's like, it seems boring, but these type of moves are the ways that you build up assets to make bigger moves. I like the idea of stashing backup quarterbacks and being able to plug them in if you need to, but this is really what you're doing it for. incremental advantages. There's not many wide receivers. We talked about Jake Bobo just a minute ago, right? You're never going to be able to flip him plus a fourth for a third. So that's why I'd much rather roster even the deep backup quarterbacks, even Nick Mullins and like Carson Wentz. People going into this, Carson Wentz wasn't even on a team until shortly before the season. So, some of these deep backups you can turn into going from a fourth to a third. And I think he mentioned in the Discord, he's a top contender. And the guy with the third is kind of middle of the pack. So this could potentially be 411 and Wentz for a 306. I mean, being able to move up a round and a half for a guy that you're probably never playing. I mean, I would assume this guy has 2 to 3 quarterbacks above Wentz, and he's not even considering starting him. And, Wentz is, he's not going to start the rest of the season. McCarthy they've already kind of made their bed with McCarthy. So he'll be back in a couple weeks. Now, if I'm desperate at quarterback, let's say I have Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels, and those are my 2 quarterbacks, and I didn't even feel like I needed to roster any other because I've got 2 of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league, and they're both out right now. And I'm just like, I just need a body. Giving up a third and getting a guy that might score you 20 points plus a fourth, to me, I'm fine with. I actually am. If you're in a desperate quarterback situation, just know that you're kind of spending it and that this is just a 2 to 3 week bet to help you survive. So I actually see these side. I did it last year with Andy Dalton in one league. I think I traded a third and a fourth for something like that for Andy Dalton. I knew I just need him to start for 2 to 3 weeks because I have a couple injuries. So I understand the deal on both sides. I think it's great. Like Carson Wentz was largely unrostered and people bid money, a bunch of fab on it, right? In most leagues. So if you had Carson Wentz stashed or you spent fab on him, right? Maybe you spent fab on him. This is a way that you're like, okay, I made that fab worth it. I upgraded my late fourth to a mid third. So I like that deal.
Yeah. I think he ended up spending $45 in fab. So okay. You're getting a third for $45 in fab. That's pretty good, man. So that's definitely a good value in for you. Yep. The next deal we have here is David Montgomery or Jack Besh in a second. And this is actually from the same Discord user. So, it was funny because he actually, I'm pretty sure, commented that people in our Discord recommended that he move forward with Dave Montgomery over Besh in the second. Yeah. And I think when you're talking about a contending team that needs a running back that could give you running back 1 weeks, and averaging probably mid to, at worst, low end RB2 scoring weeks, I'm good with David Montgomery in that position. And I'm not just saying that as a Lions fan.
I like Jack Besh in the pre-draft process, and even after the draft, seemed like he got a good landing spot. But man, the Raiders don't seem to like Jack Besh. He's just not getting on the field much. They're not throwing the ball.
They like Dante Thornton more.
They like Thornton. They drafted 2 or 3 rounds later, and he's playing over him. I mean, Thornton looks good too. So I just think at this point, I'm not sure that Besh is a drop, but I mean, I wouldn't mind trading him for a third or even maybe a fourth and another dice. Like, can I trade him for like a fourth and Keandre Lambert-Smith? Somebody kind of in that same tier of like complete dart throw. So to me, I like this type of deal. Like, this is what I wish Dalton would have done instead of the 2 seconds for Warren. Like, go get a guy like this, because I don't even think Besh is worth a second. So you just got. Now, obviously, every league is different. Maybe the David Montgomery owner is another contender and doesn't want to sell him. And I get that. Like, I have a league where I have Montgomery, and I'm a contender, so like I probably want a first for me to move off of him. Not that I necessarily think he's worth a first, but it's like somebody's gonna have to overpay to take him from me. So not every league's the same, but like to me, Montgomery is more. We've seen a longer snapshot of him performing, and actually, whereas I think someone like Warren, right, you're like there's a potential for him having a smaller role. Montgomery is a guy that is a solid RB2 that has top 5 upside if Jahmyr Gibbs gets hurt. So not that you're wishing Jahmyr Gibbs to get hurt. I'm just saying like you're getting a solid RB2 production as kind of a floor with upside of, if there is an injury ahead of him, there's a ton of potential. So I like David Montgomery better. I think this is how I want to spend my seconds is for guys like this. 2 seconds for Montgomery is a little steep. I would be fine with it. But a second and a guy like Besh, you're saving that other second for something else. Up an asset that was just kind of hanging out on the end of your bench, and if you're a contender, you can afford to trade some of those guys. I just trade a similar trade recently where I traded Jalen and I think a third for Jordan Mason a couple weeks ago. So like before the breakout, but like
That's a
that
great
same type
trade.
of thing where you're doing a later round rookie that isn't playing a lot right now, plus a pick instead of giving up 2 picks for that guy to plug into your lineup. I like that better.
Yeah, for sure. Oh man, Dalton, I don't want to bring this one up, but yeah, because I don't know. I know the way that I feel about it, and you can leave Turd Ferguson out of it, and I still might take the 26th first and third for over Pearsall. But I love Pearsall. I actually took I took Pearsall from Dalton for 2 seconds, and I feel pretty good about that. But I don't know. This just feels like it's a little too much for me.
Yeah. I don't
I see
mind.
it.
I don't mind Pearsall for a first, and to me, Ferguson and a third are not really worth that much. So they're not deal breakers to me. I think Ferguson's maybe worth a third. So those 2 thirds as a tack on. If you're a contender and you need a wide receiver,
Yeah,
I don't mind this. I'm not going to lose sleep over losing what I assume is your tight end 3 or 4 on your roster, plus a 3rd round pick on top of a first. So to be honest with you, I don't mind this for the guy getting Pearsall, but yeah, but George Kittle's coming back, Brandon Ayuk's coming back, Juwan Jennings is coming back, so maybe this is a good time to sell Pearsall and getting a couple other assets on top of a first. I think is pretty good because I think Pearsall is probably worth 1 first and nothing added on. So getting, even though they seem like inconsequential things, I think the value on getting Ferguson out there, maybe Ferguson pops and you can somehow get a second for him, then I'd like that better. So I think it's fine. I see both sides of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a believer in Pearsall. I just, in the same way that you guys are talking about Benson, not being worth that first right now. I don't know that I want to buy Pearsall at this point. His value has just kind of gotten more towards his ceiling where, yeah, like you said, you've got some assets coming back in San Francisco with Ayuk coming off the injury, although we don't know when that's going to be. George Kittle coming off of IR.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if you're a contender, and I think in this situation for Dalton, it was, take your shot, man. I think it's a fair deal if you're willing to take.
Here's an interesting question. You mentioned would you rather have Benson than Pearsall straight up?
I think the question's right. I think I'd say Pearsall, probably.
Yeah, I think so too, because he's a wide receiver. I think that's to me, it's like there's less volatility in the wide receiver position. If the 49ers draft a wide receiver, it's not the end of the world for him. If the Cardinals draft a 1st or 2nd round running back last year, Trey Benson's value tanks. So it's like, to me, just the solidified kind of the solid floor of these young wide receivers makes me more likely to trade my first for one of them than for Trey Benson. So that's kind of my thought process. I know everybody has a little bit of different, but to me, if I'm trading for a running back with a first, I want a veteran that's going to get me 20 points a week. That's what I want, or even 17, 18 points a week. That's what I want to trade my first for, not for a speculative young guy who could become that, but I don't know that he's that right now.
Right, for sure. And you guys do a great job of sending us wonderful trades like this all the time. We go over this stuff in our Discord also all the time. We just get to highlight some of these on some of the Trading Pieces shows. We plan to do some more in the future. We also plan to do some roster reviews as well. And also we have some start mocks planned in the future. Yeah. So definitely keep tuned for that. We always want to thank FSAN and the Grindhouse for hosting us. It gives us a great platform to be able to speak on with our show. But if you want to follow us, please hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. Please DM us. Of course, you can find me on X at Dynasty Big Mac FF. You can find Austin at Dynasty Austin MJ. So please just reach out to us. We can get you connected, get you in the free Discord. We want to be able to help you guys win your leagues. So, Austin, do you have any other parting thoughts before we get out of here?
Yeah, just thank you to everyone who sent in trades. Like Ben said, I mean, we're doing this, on camera, but we do this. We talk through trades all the time, pretty much every day in the Discord. So jump in there. There's no fee to join. It's just a community where people hang out and talk football. So we'd love to have you in there. And yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks to FSAN for having us, and we'll see you next time.
All right, guys. Well, Austin, it was great being on with you. The rest of you guys, have a good night.